in this connection that's this ambiguous thing. Friendships to me are the foundation for success in every other relationship dynamic they're in.
Yeah.
It literally, like if you can't be a good friend, I don't know how you can be a good boyfriend or girlfriend, how you can be a good husband or wife, how you can be a good ministry leader, a good boss, a good team, member. Like how?
YouTube, what's going on, everybody? My name is Montez, and I want to welcome you all back to another episode of Infinite Grace TV. The journey, the purpose of this channel is to build a community of people who walk through the journey of unpacking themselves, their trauma, and learn what it means to be whole. And this is all through the T.A.P.I.N method. To tap in simply means to walk in every situation fully transparent, accountable, persistently pursuing healing. To be integrated. Growing up in church, I will often hear pray things away. And though I'm a big advocate of praying, I'm also an advocate of pursuing help from a mental health professional and becoming integrated in your faith and in counseling and everything of that sort. But then also the last letter is to be in, which is near the cross. It's only before the cross of Christ can one come fully broken, fully shattered, receive infinite grace, and stand fully pieced together. If you have not yet, or you're new to this channel, come tap in with me by hitting the subscribe button. Make sure you also like, share, and comment below something that was helpful so that I know that y'all are listening and things that y'all have learned. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and hop into today's episode. I am so excited because I have my second guest on the channel, KB from Heart Convos. I wish we had like little clapping people. Yeah, I'm gonna probably put that in there. But well, KB, appreciate you for coming on.
Hey,
and
I'm
chopping
super
with me.
excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell the people about yourself and what you do and what you specialize in.
Yeah, so my government name is Kristen, affectionately known as KB, mainly because for the last 12 years, I have been a full-time DJ by profession. And so DJ KB was my DJ name. But now, as of the last 5 years, I am the CEO and founder of a platform called Heart Convos. And so Heart is an acronym for the 5 conversations worth having, which I think are honest, elephant-sized, authentic, real, and transparent conversations. So a lot of what you do already aligns with what I'm about. If we're not having those 5 conversations, I don't know what we're talking about. So I champion deep, meaningful connection by disrupting the status quo, teaching people to connect and communicate at the highest levels using Heart Convos. So that's what I do.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I think it ties right into what we're talking about today, which is, how to heal from friendship breakup. So how do you heal from friendship breakup? Let's just jump, why not just jump straight into the deep end and we can just go from there.
Okay. How do you heal from a friendship breakup? Well, I will say this, that there's no special formula because it's a friendship. I will say that. To your brain, a breakup is a breakup. And so for anybody who thinks that there's a special formula for how to navigate a breakup in friendship or a breakup in dating or a breakup in marriage, like the actual steps itself are the same. The impact of the hurt or the trauma will probably be different depending on the level of connection, right, that's been broken. However, I just want to say that the process in and of itself is the same. And I want to say this before I even get into those steps, is that I really, really believe that we downplay friendship. We don't really give it the credit that we should in being a valid space to really become the people we want to become in the relationships that we have. And even though it's a platonic relationship most times, and it's a relationship that, again, people typically have no standards for, they're just looking for this vibe and this connection that's this ambiguous thing. Friendships, to me, are the foundation for success in every other relationship dynamic they're in.
Yeah.
It literally, like if you can't be a good friend, I don't know how you can be a good boyfriend or girlfriend, how you can be a good husband or wife, how you can be a good ministry leader, a good boss, a good team, member. Like how, if you've not figured it out in friendship. So I just want to put that out there first before I get into all of these different steps. So navigating a best friend breakup or a friendship breakup, I would say 3 things need to happen. First, you need to diagnose the hurt. Like, we need to diagnose it. It's just like whenever you go to the doctor, you go in, there's a season or a period of diagnosis that has to happen so that we know what to treat. And again, everybody doesn't have the same hurt from a breakup.
Yeah.
For some people, it's more shallow. For some people, it's deeper. For some people, it's there's a strong disappointment maybe for the amount of time that was invested, not to get the return on the investment they expected. For some people, it's I exposed my whole self to you, and now I feel taken advantage of. For other people, it's you betrayed me. There was a broken trust or loyalty that wasn't displayed. Whatever the hurt is, we need to pinpoint it and get to the root of it. And that happens in that first phase to me of healing, which is let's diagnose what happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a huge part, because a lot of times when I've found like the disappointment over and over again of broken relationships kind of just make you numb a bit. And you're just like, it'd be all right. And then you wonder why you never fully open yourself up, or why you go into different relationships, whether you ended a friendship and it hurt and you move into or a romantic relationship with somebody, why you just carry this wall and you put that up and you don't even know it a lot of times, because you never actually acknowledged the pain and actually sat with that pain from the last. And again, I said this before, I'm moving away from Enneagrams. I heard a lot of stuff about it, and we're not gonna get into it, but as a 7, I don't like to sit in my feelings. I genuinely don't. And I've said this so many times when I've experienced disappointment in friendships or just relationships in general. And it's all right. It didn't really sting, but it's not a good sign that it doesn't sting.
Yeah.
If you don't feel it, it's not a good sign.
Well, also, because we don't know how to specifically diagnose, like get to the root of what I am feeling, right? A lot of times we don't have language for the emotion. We only have about 4 or 5 words that we would use to describe how we're feeling, when there are hundreds of words that we could be using. So if we don't have language, if we don't do the work to pinpoint why this particular thing hurt in comparison to the last thing that hurt, what we'll do is we'll just blanket everything as one type of hurt. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so then anything that even resembles hurt now gets coupled into this broad blob of experiences that if we were to dissect each one and figure out what went wrong here and what were you upset about here or disappointed about here, what hurt about this next, failed relationship, were there any connections? Were they 2 separate situations? Because now if I don't do that work, whenever like the ability to be triggered becomes super easy. Does that make sense? Because now it's like, if it look like, smell like, talk like, walk like, it's like, I don't want no parts of it. And it's like, really? Like, they just have the same name. It doesn't mean that they're gonna, but it's like Richard. Oh no, I don't do Richards. We're gonna throw all Richards in the trash. You get what I'm saying? So that's why I think the diagnosis, process is so critical as you're navigating pain. And this is something that you can do practically.
Yeah.
First, I tell people as they're navigating best friend breakups, you should be able to define the pain, okay? Like say what it is. So I am feeling grief. I am feeling dread at the thought of getting back out there in the dating world. I am feeling anguish, like I am feeling disappointment, whatever it is. So define it. Then you need to be able to describe it, okay? Now, the difference between defining something and describing something is the define is the what, the describe is the how. So if I were to ask you, can you describe an orange to me? What would you say?
I would say that it's orange and it has maybe like a leather kind of feel when you're touching it.
Okay.
It's like little pockets everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
You would get into very descriptive, like adjective words, right? But if I ask you, what is an orange? What would you say?
It's a fruit.
Okay. So the difference between defining something and describing something, you can clearly see the difference. It's the what, but then it's the how. But then you need to be able to demonstrate an orange. So demonstration is not just the how, but the how it works. So I was like, can you demonstrate an orange for me? You might start at the seed process, maybe. Like, well, a seed has to be planted, right? And then it, grows into a tree, and then you pluck the orange down, and then you can peel it, and you can actually like peel the pieces off and eat them individually, or you can just bite into it, or you can just keep it whole and like squeeze it and use the juice. Like, you're demonstrating to me how an orange works. When you do that with your disappointment, right?
Yeah.
Like, or your dread. What is the dread what are you feeling about going back into the dating world or getting online about dating because you've experienced so many breakups, or even putting yourself out there to develop a new friend group? You might say, I feel dread. Mm-hmm. Most people will say they feel anxious, but it might not actually be anxiety. It might just be, all right? It's that,
Yeah.
oh my God, like I have no motivation to really lean it because I'm telling myself a story about how this isn't going to work and it's probably going to be like last time. So I'm just dreading this experience, right? So that is how you define it. Describe it. It's like, I literally, like I said, again, I have no motivation. Every time I go to get on it, like I immediately start, like thinking about why this won't work or whatever.
Absolutely.
What does that look like? Demonstrate. It looks like for the last 6 months, every time somebody invites me out, like,
Yeah.
I say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because as a single person, I've used this phrase so many times. I am tired. Mm-hmm. I'm tired of wasting my time, putting myself out there. And I would say that I'm a pretty transparent person. Like, I like to, I'm going to give you the stuff and then you make the decision. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to share authentically about myself, stuff that people would already know, things that, that's not like super, super in depth, but things that will help you make a decision early on so you don't waste my time. And I think that is out of, I'm tired of going through the process over and over again and kind of building that, oh, okay, this person's like really cool. And then,
at some point,
not even, yeah. And then, we're not even talking like at all. We may still follow each other on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, but like
it's like radio silence. Like it just goes quiet.
And then it feels like you've given that access to somebody and now they're carrying that access with them wherever they go. And it's like, I'm tired.
Right. Exactly. And if we were to work together through this, right, through a situation that you've been in, what I would try to do is get you to pinpoint the specific point where you were like, this part right here is the part I don't like.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Because it's not the whole thing maybe that you don't like.
Absolutely.
But there's a specific part that you don't like. And that's all of us in any, like season of loss or period of loss, right? And so I think that diagnosis piece is huge because when you do that, then now I know exactly what I need to treat, which is the second phase. So there needs to be proper diagnosis so that there can be proper treatment. I don't know about you, but have you ever like gone to the doctor about something and they're like, oh yeah, just take go get a prescription, take this or whatever. And it's like, this isn't actually dealing with the root of the issue. It's just kind of soothing my symptoms, right? I think oftentimes when people are navigating like a friendship breakup, they're figuring out ways to cope with the symptoms now that they have as a result of the breakup. They're not actually, dealing with the injury. Does that make sense? And if you don't actually deal with the injury, that means that proper healing can't take place and you can't ultimately get to that third phase, which is recovery, right? So people will say like, oh, it's been 6 months, like I'm good. Like, oh, it's been a year since I've been, like, I'm good. It's like, are you though? Like, did you diagnose, treat, and recover well, like from the breakup? Or has there just been a lot of time that's passed that makes us feel like we're okay because it just scabbed over, or maybe just because it just doesn't hurt as much as it used to anymore, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Andy Mineo says, like, memories are easily made but hard to forget because they're etched up in your heart, the good times and regret. And literally, time does not heal wounds. I've said it before. It just helps you get over them. But if somebody pokes that or something, like you said from the beginning, like, let it resemble something. Let it resemble a Richard. Like, let it resemble something of that person. It's going to trigger you. And your responses is, oh, crap, like, I'm in danger, or this is going to be that. It could even be that this is healthy, and maybe they're holding you accountable. Maybe they're being, like, calling you out on something, but it feels uncomfortable or it feels like something you've experienced in the past, and so you react and you kind of self-sabotage.
You can. That's a whole.
Oh my goodness.
Another episode. But again, I think it goes back down to, did you diagnose the hurt properly?
Absolutely.
If we diagnose the hurt properly and we learn to sit in our and our hurt and our disappointed, give ourselves permission to feel how we're feeling, especially the believer. Because as you're, like you get to talk to the body, right? And I love that. I don't always have the pleasure of talking to Christians who, like, I'm not always going into spaces where people share the same values, right? And so as you're talking to the believer, oftentimes we do not give ourselves permission to feel how we feel because we think the feeling itself is the sin. You get what I mean?
Wow.
So it's like, if I'm angry, like, no, the Bible says don't be angry. No.
Yeah.
That's not what it says. You get what I'm saying? Like, it says in your anger, do not sin. You get what I mean? And so the God that we serve is 100% God and 100% man.
Absolutely.
Like, same time. We're doing all the time. There wasn't like any exceptions. And so all that we feel as our great high priest, he has also felt it. And so I don't know why we don't give ourselves permission to feel how we feel, but I think that's the first step, is acknowledging that, letting that energy and motion in your body like have its place, and then learning how to move through that and not let that completely cripple your entire belief system and your perspective about all the things, right? And once you give yourself permission to feel how you feel, then you can remind yourself of what is true.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're continuing to do this to your feelings, or what I like to, we do this in my training stuff all the time, where emotionally people are walking around like this. Like, they're literally like holding their mouth and holding their nose to their emotions. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever like been in a situation where you can't breathe, the rest of your body starts to respond at some point. And what happens, like, your body will start to jerk because it's saying, hey, we're not getting enough oxygen. And then it starts to like panic.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's what's happening to a lot of people emotionally. They're suffocating themselves emotionally, like they're pressing it down. They're not giving themselves the ability to breathe through it, work through the process. And what happens is, all of a sudden they'll be in the middle of a conversation and they'll just start tearing up. And then they'll say something like, oh my God, I don't know why I'm like getting emotional right now.
Yeah.
Well, it's because you've been
holding
it in for so long. Somebody has said something or has seen a piece of you that you have kept hidden, and now you're like on the verge of tears. It also happens on the flip side, where you're in the middle of a conversation and all of a sudden you find yourself like snapping on somebody, and it's like, where did that come from? Does that make sense? And so if you can give yourself permission to feel how you feel, remind yourself of what is true, like, what does truth say? Then you can do that third step, which is act on what you believe. You get what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so those three things, I think, help us also get through that diagnosis, treatment, and recovery space as well.
And I think it's very important, like, three things that triggered three different things for me.
Okay.
There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Great book. And
I remember at the Think conference, I think it was maybe 2 or so years ago, College Park hosted this conference, and it was on holiness. And literally, like, part of Infinite Gates kind of came from that, because he was like, you can be dysfunctional and a Christian. Like, this is why it's so important for us to be integrated, because, like, there are trauma responses, like, embedded into your brain that causes you to respond in certain ways. And then also you keep shame in certain parts of your body. So if, for me, I have asthma or had asthma, I'm pretty sure I grew out of it or just got into shape, or one of the two. But I used to be so embarrassed to take my inhaler in public because I thought it would make me look weak. Like, I'll be in school having a full-blown asthma attack, body jerking and everything. Like you just said, can't breathe. But I'm not taking my inhaler because I'm ashamed.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, like, I'm not allowing myself to get the resources so that I can properly navigate and breathe properly. And then the second thing is, there's a pastor named Jerry Flowers, and he says in one of his episodes, he says that your mouth is the ventilation system of your heart. And what's in your heart, if it does not get out, like you said, right, if you keep pushing it down or you like close that vent, if you're in a car and it's inside the garage and it's on, like, that's toxic. It's going to harm you. It's going to hurt you. And so it's so important for us to talk and to speak and to get it out, because if not, we suffer and we think, oh, I can't trust that person. And that's true, right? You should have boundaries and everything, and you shouldn't give everybody access to you.
100%.
But it's important to find those people where you have a safe space, which is part of Infinite Grace. Like, I want to build a community where it's a safe space where people can come, they can fully be known and acknowledge, man, I'm also fully loved. And these people are going to leave this place, or these people aren't going to go and run and tell that, right? But I can be my full self and my hurt self at that and receive the healing that I need so that I can walk in a healthy manner moving forward.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Wow. The next question I have is like, how can someone avoid breakups in friendships?
That's a great question. I will just acknowledge that sometimes breakups are inevitable, right? It comes to the surface and becomes abundantly clear, that this isn't good. Like, but the question for me is not that can you stop a breakup from happening or whatever. It's like, well, why is the breakup happening, right? And I don't think people, again, do that proper diagnosis to understand like what led us to this place. Why did this happen? So I often talk about relationships like vehicles. I tell people all the time that the relationship that you are in with any particular individual is just like the vehicle. The connection that you establish inside of that relationship is the fuel.
Absolutely.
Right? That allows that vehicle to go and to be sustained, you know what I mean, and to remain like a healthy working vehicle. And so I love talking about connection because it's the connection piece that I think we get wrong, not the relationship dynamic, so to speak. This is also why I have a soapbox about relationship advice, because I'm like, relationship advice is only so helpful if you don't really understand how connection works or the art of connection. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You can kind of look at it like me as a person who can't cook. You just say that, right? As a person who can't cook, someone giving relationship advice is equivalent to someone giving me the ingredients to make a cake.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Or hot water cornbread.
Or hot water cornbread, to be clear. You get what I'm saying? It's like, even if she came here and said, girl, all you need is this, 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 and this, I would be like, okay. And I might have an idea, but I really don't know, like, how to take this relationship advice or these ingredients and make hot water cornbread.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense? And so when people just are out here spewing relationship advice to people to keep them, from having like breaking up or whatever, it's like, it's not really helpful because they don't understand how connection works. This is how connection works. I teach this thing called the 5 levels of connection, where it's kind of like imagine a funnel, like an ice cream cone or a funnel where it's wider at the top, but it's smaller at the bottom, and then break that funnel up into 5 sections. The section at the top is going to be your biggest section, and then the section at the bottom is going to be your smallest section, which is how it should be as you're building community, right? You will know the most amount of strangers that come into this funnel, and the ones that make it closest to your heart will probably only be a few.
Yeah.
Right? Well, at the top, you have these level 1 relationships, we'll call them. In the level 1 relationships, those people are strangers. You don't know those people. So when you go to build relationship with a stranger, what you're trying to build the relationship over, or the fuel that you want to go into that relationship dynamic, is information. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're only a stranger because you don't have any information about them.
Yeah.
So
that's very true.
The goal when you meet a stranger is to find fuel, information, right, to put into this relationship dynamic. Now, this is what people will say. They'll be like, well, I don't like small talk and I don't do small and all that stuff. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. You need to become incredibly good at gathering information.
Yeah.
The better you are at gathering information from people and not making them feel like you're interviewing them or you're interrogating them, but genuinely being interested and intrigued by other image bearers of God, like, you become a great collector of information.
Absolutely.
Once you collect that information, you then can create opportunity to move to that second level, which is an acquaintance. A person goes from a stranger to an acquaintance on level 2 when you choose to invest with the information you have. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Now, this is where the nuance happens, because the amount of information you need to invest might be different from the amount of information I need. I might just need to know your name and then be like, hey, do you want to get coffee?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like, but there are other people who's like, absolutely not. Like, listen, this is extroverts of America over here. All the introverts are listening to this are like, oh, heck no. Like,
what are you doing?
I need to first know your name, where you from, what you believe, like all this stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, great. Cool. So moving people to that second level is going to take a little longer for you, unless you know how to ask incredibly inquisitive questions that help a person get to the point quicker, right? Get to the thing that they care about quicker, right? And so anyway, once you have enough information, you then move to invest. A person is an acquaintance if you all are investing in one another. And that investment can be small. Y'all are texting back and forth. Maybe you've gone out to coffee, you've invited them somewhere, y'all are watching a show together, whatever. You're being intentional about investing in the individual. Well, you move out of that acquaintance space into what I call level 3 or the compatriot space when you start seeing interest on that investment.
Yeah.
What that means is I went out to coffee, right, with you. I got enough information to say I'm comfortable to invest. We went out for coffee, and I actually feel like there was a return on this investment. Like I put in $1 and I got $5 back. That's a good investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I got way more out of this time than I expected. When that happens in a relationship dynamic over and over and over again, the interest starts to grow, right? Like you're in it, and it also starts to compound, like for that relationship dynamic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is when people are like, oh, this is my friend. Like, oh, we're dating. Those first 3 levels, right? They get people to that place. But I will say this. No relationship becomes deep until you transition into that level 4. So those first 3 levels are really just a cycle that people get involved in when it's like, as long as I'm getting something from this, I'm willing to put something into it.
Yeah.
A relationship goes from shallow to deep when now those those comrade relationships on level 4 are built on our intent. So this is not, oh, I'm dating Montez because he takes me out, he shows me a good time, like he has great conversation, like all this kind of stuff. It's like, no. I'm dating Montez because I like Montez. Like I align with his values. I align with who he is. I love his passion. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
In friendship, we're looking for those people. Like, oh, I don't just kick it with them because we're all going out and we're doing something together or there's a show coming or whatever. Like I actually just like being with this person.
Absolutely.
You get what I mean? Like for what the person provides, not the experiences that we share together. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
That is when a relationship pivots from shallow to deep. Because a lot of relationships that transition heavy from season to season when something changes, like, oh, we were in school, we're not in school no more, we can't be friends. Or I was single and now you're married, so now we can't be friends. Or I was, doing we were at the same job, we're no longer at the same job, we can't be friends. That just shows me that the relationship was built on those first 3 levels. It never pivoted to level 4.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that level 4 is intent. Last level, smallest part of the cone at the bottom, that is your inner circle. Those relationships on level 5 are built in intimacy. And intimacy does not equal sex. Yeah. A lot of times people will be like, oh, I can only have intimate relationship with my spouse. I can only have intimate relationship with the person. It's like, no. When you think of the word intimacy, think of into me see. Anyone I allow to see into me, I am sharing an intimate moment with them. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you can build the culture of any relationship on intimacy if you choose, right? And the people who are closest to you, whether it be your best friend, your brother, your family, whoever's in that space for you, that is the culture or the baseline for our points of connection. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
You ain't got to set it up. If you came through this door right now, you was like, completely overwhelmed right now. It will be fine. Whereas if you do that on a level 2, they're like, okay, hold up. I just thought we was here to eat. Yeah. What is all of this, right? So why do I give you all that? I give you that framework so that you can understand those 5 I's of information, investment, interest, intent, and intimacy are the fuel that you put into your different relationship dynamics. And when you really dive into the art of connection, which is what I teach on, with Heart Convos, you know when to put those things in what relationships. You get what I mean? Yeah. Appropriately. And what's happening is sometimes people are putting intimacy in a level 2 relationship and they're mad because that level 2 relationship is like, I was just, we just went out on a date once. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so once people get that, I think it helps them to properly measure the boundaries, the expectations for relationships, and that leads, and it keeps you from getting to a point in a relationship dynamic where it's like, this isn't working. Because now you know why it's not working.
Yeah. Wow. And I think we have not been equipped when we haven't been equipped in general to navigate relationships with like proper and healthy boundaries and expectations. Like we go to even church contexts, like there have been so many times when I've like been in church context and I'm like, I don't like it here because I don't have community, because I'm really looking for those deeper connections. As an extroverted myself, like I grew up, I want to know as many people as possible. And then as I kind of got older, it's like, nah, I don't really want to know many people. I'm cool with just a couple people I got and I know. And you see that even with Jesus, right? He had the masses that he preached to. They was trying to roll with him. He was like, hey, we're going to go across the sea with the 12. And then he has his 3, you know, and like we acknowledge like, yeah, not everybody should know you in a deeper way because that's just not healthy. And we have to be equipped with how we can navigate those 5 different
Absolutely
levels.
You see that with Moses and Jethro. You know, even the Old Testament, it's like he told him, he was like, hey, you can't extend yourself to all of the people.
Yeah.
You are going to burn yourself out. You need to get some, you know, like, so there needs to be a limit to the amount of access that people have to you, right? Because of the specific assignment that was on his life. And I think that's true. We see the art of connection happening perfectly through Jesus and the way that he interacts with people in the scriptures, which excites me every time I go to the scriptures to see the art of connection, like literally, like, oh my gosh, look at how Jesus did what he did, right? Yeah. And even within that, I think it's important for people to understand that, one, we have not been equipped. So if you feel like you've been struggling in your relationships, there's no shame in that, right? Because shame will say that I should have already mastered everything. That's what I tell people SHAME means, right? I should have already mastered everything, so therefore I feel shame that I haven't been able to do this, or I can't do this, or I haven't figured this out yet, and I'm in my 30s or I'm late 20s and I don't have any friends. Like, there's no shame, right? It's an awareness now that you have that you're lacking in some area, and you need skill, right? And you need the Holy Spirit, right? But I tell people all the time, like, once you get this, you know how to create cultures, you know how to create experiences, and you know how to create moments, right? So to your point, you don't need everybody to be a level 5 friend to you. Yeah. But you do need to know how to make level 5 connections at any point. Absolutely. Does that make sense? Because you can have a level 5 moment of connection with a perfect stranger. And a lot of that was happening in COVID. It happens at church all the time too. At church, we'll come to a Bible study. It's my first time there. And there, I'll be asked to share my story. First of all, people who I share my story with are probably people that I know, that I love, that I trust. I don't know y'all. Yeah. All I know is that we might share the same set of values, which is really just information. Yeah. So now you got all these people who are probably level 2 sitting around the scriptures talking level 5 talk. Does that make sense? Yeah. So then you walk away a little bit confused, like, well, what expectation should I have of these people? I literally just told you my sin struggles. I just told you everything about my life, but ain't not near one of y'all called me all month to see how I was doing. And you see why people then get offended and they get church hurt, and there's this stuff is because it's like, people don't really know, like, the difference. And poor leader, the leader don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, the pastors don't really know. And I'm like, hey, I sometimes wish I could teach the art of connection for churches, because honestly, it would help people understand, like, this is how we should foster connection in these different spaces in a more healthy way, and how we can set a healthy expectation for what relationships look like. Because if I tell you my whole story, I might be expecting for there to be something here outside of this Bible study. Does that make sense?
And when you, like you just said, when you don't get it, because I've experienced that. Like,
me too.
Oh, I'm in this, even when I was pastoring, I'm in this context. I'm new to this context. I'm a part of this young adults. Now this person wants to go deeper with me and wants me to be a part of this discipleship group. And I'm like, nah, I don't even know you. We don't have any relational capital. Like, there is no depth. Like, you know my name. You probably know some of the things that I've shared, because I would say, oh, okay, I'm an open person, which
confuses people.
It does.
Because they don't understand how connection.
Did you just share? Did you just share what you just shared? It's like, yeah, it's also on my YouTube, right? Like,
correct.
So it's like,
correct.
Hey, yeah, we should live in this transparency, but at the same time, like, we should have boundaries as well. And when you're in those spaces, and then you find yourself like by yourself, no, you're not. I say this all the time. Hey, we should link up. We're not gonna link up.
Probably not.
Probably not gonna link up. And I try, but I've gotten to this place where, like, I don't really want to link up with a whole lot of people. I love hearing people's stories, and this is like the part. But like when people, we should link up. I was like, give me some time. I feel like I'm turning into an introvert where I just appreciate, or maybe that's just maturity. I don't know. Like, maybe I'm just like, hey, I know that in this season I can't give you my best self, and you deserve that. So let's kind of like wait for a little bit so that I can have some time to process some of the things or to not be burnt out. Because like you said, relationships, when not done properly, when you're overextending yourself, and a lot of people want pieces of you because they see the value, and that's another conversation. It's like you have people who smell value like sharks smell blood, and they want a piece of that, but not you. And so it's like their intentions is not there. And
but when you understand the art of connection, you can pick that up within the first 3 minutes of talking to somebody.
Wow.
Which is what I love. Like when a person really understands how the art of connection works, I tell people all the time, like I can meet somebody and within the first 3 minutes of meeting them, tell whether or not this person aligns with me. If if I want to invest in this individual based on the information I'm collecting from them.
Absolutely.
And I'm not just paying attention to what they're saying, I'm paying attention to how they're saying it, I'm paying attention to how they move, I'm paying attention to eye contact, I'm paying attention to how they're treating the people around us. I'm just paying attention, right? And again, because I've become a great gatherer of information. Yeah. And information is not just what you say. You know what I mean? And so it's how you show up, it's your presence, it's your intentionality, it's your tone, it's everything, right? And so you can become more aware of what that looks like in in a healthy, intentional way, and not it be what we were talking about earlier, like, oh, if his name is Richard, it's a no for me, right? Yeah. or if you even ask me about what I do too soon, I already know that you got motives. It's like, that's not necessarily true, right? But people, again, I would just say that people are probably doing the best with what they have, right, with their experiences. And it's good to believe that about people when we go to meet them and engage, right? Everybody's just doing the best that they can with what they have. And something you said that I think is really, really, I think, how can I say this? Something that I think is really cool about what you just said in regard to your awareness of yourself is that you're like, man, I'm getting to this space where, excuse me, I'm getting to this space where I don't know if I'm becoming an introvert or not, but I'm able to kind of measure more appropriately like what capacity I have for people in this season of life. And I tell people it's kind of like paying attention to your bank account. Like you know how much you have in your bank account right now, which then informs you on what you can and cannot do with the resources you have. If people would do that with their relationships, they'll do some relationship banking, which is something that I teach. You can also say, like, I realize that I'm in deficit. Like, my relationship account right now is in deficit. We got overdraft fees. Yeah. Like, you get what I mean? And it's not just relationships altogether, it's individual ones. So, for example, if our relationship just started, there's just not a lot in the account, right? Yeah. Like, maybe there's the $200 that you need to start an account, and that's about it, right? But the more we continue to invest in one another, if I'm getting interest on that, then that account starts to grow. However, if there's multiple offenses, and we're not working through those offenses, we're depleting that account. Come on. If every time we talk, you're asking me for something, you're always pulling on the relationship, but you're not necessarily depositing in, then eventually you're going to overdraft this connection. Does that make sense? And so what you're doing is you're measuring like, for certain individuals that I meet, I'm measuring what capacity I have for them. Like, is there enough in this account for us to go hang out, right? Like to go spend that kind of time together, maybe. But for some, it's kind of like, listen, we got so many overdraft fees at this point. This relationship is it's taxing me at this point. You get what I'm saying? Like we're in debt.
We're straight debt.
Like it's straight debt.
Pay it back.
And we can't pay it back.
Collection at this point. You
get what I mean? So it's like, stop calling me. Yeah. Like I got nothing for you. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think it's great that you have that awareness of yourself, right, in that way. But you don't blanket that awareness to every relationship. You're just specific about, that about the certain people that you encounter.
Yeah, especially when I be feeling bad sometimes when I'm like, no, I don't want to, no. Like learning the art of saying no with the period, meaning, hey, it's a complete sentence.
It is a complete sentence.
I don't have to explain why I don't want to do something. And I struggle with that because somebody tell me no, that's rejection. But that's a whole nother conversation.
It is. It is.
Learning, hey, no, I'm just not feeling this right now, and being comfortable with simply saying no. I think it's very important that we learn like those boundaries with ourselves, but it requires for us to sit with ourselves and get comfortable with ourselves. Like in this last season, I became most comfortable with myself when I lost everything, because I found myself being like a quote unquote alone. and I had to learn myself. And once I got that, and even COVID revealed a lot of stuff. COVID revealed, wait, I'm maybe more of an ambivert than I am an extrovert.
Sure.
Because I had to get comfortable with myself. And then after that happens, like, all right, I go home at the end of the night. It's like when I'm eating, like I'm want to be by myself. When I'm watching a movie, like I want to be by myself. There are certain periods and certain things that I just enjoy doing by myself, and it's in me enjoying me.
Yes.
And then it makes those moments when I'm with people even more precious.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, this has been an amazing conversation. I know there's a lot of helpful things, and these sound bites are gonna be fire. These sound bites are gonna be so good. So tell the people how they can get in contact with you, because I know there are gonna be some people who want to know how to connect with you and how to, seek out your services and everything. So yeah, just tell the people.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to connect with me, you can find me everywhere at Heart Convos. So HeartConvos. Most of my content is on Instagram, but you can find some content on YouTube. You can find some content on TikTok. I think I even got stuff on Facebook. I don't know. I have a team of people, honestly, who do that social media stuff. There's so much content everywhere. Like, you could find me if you're looking for me. If you just want to hear more, like, about like who I am, why I am, all the things, if you go to heartconvos.com, there's usually an opportunity for you to lean in either to like a free quiz or a free masterclass or some type of resource if you just want to take a deeper dive into something that I'm doing. But yeah, I live to champion deep, meaningful connection, right? I want people to have it. I think God has designed us for it, right? To do life with people in a deep and meaningful way. And the society we live in right now just doesn't create a lot of opportunity for it. As a matter of fact, we're going in the opposite direction. Like, we're literally, a person can wake up, go to work, order some groceries, eat, find some entertainment, and not actually have to look at a human the entire day. Like, there's literally. And so I tell people that, the reason why I think we all struggle to connect and communicate at a high level is because we don't know how to connect and communicate at a heart level anymore, right? And so if you're looking for more content around Heart Convos, again, find me everywhere on social media at Heart Convos, or go to heartconvos.com, and I'm sure there's a resource there about a live event coming up, or again, a free masterclass or a free quiz or a training or something. So.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, y'all, this is the end of this episode of Infinite Grace TV. Again, my name is Tez, and I am back out quiet.